We have finally arrived at our new property since we have officially rented it. You can see we've got our little tent set up. We've got a wood pile to the side there covered up with tarps, our little grill, bonfire to keep us warm right next to the tent. Sean unloading the vehicle there. We just have a makeshift kind of wood roof rack that we were carrying all of our supplies with. We loaded the trunk with the gravel. Danjo's all set up so we can get to work. Got her food and water there. Her little microfiber bed. It's actually my birthday weekend, so we're just here for 3 days. I got off on Friday, and we're going to work through Saturday and Sunday. Hopefully we'll be able to get all of this done. We just need to lay the cinder blocks and build our skid beams. I might actually leave Sean here for a couple days to work on the skid bracing while I'm at work. So we'll see how that goes. We've got our fire going for the night. This was the first night we spent the night. It's pretty sinister here. You can hear the train going by, coming up here. So we are in for the night and ready to get to work first thing in the morning. So this is the first day of us on the property getting some work done. We are laying out our cinder block foundation. Here we're just kind of getting an idea of the perimeter so we can make sure everything is square and level. And you can see Sean started to dig some holes. You want to have at least 6 to 8 inches of gravel, so he's got to go down pretty deep, and there were a lot of roots to deal with. We're also going 3 cinder blocks wide and then 5 cinder blocks down the entire length of the building. Puppy break. So now we're to the point where we're filling the holes with gravel. It's a fine gravel. You want a nice stable base to put your cinder blocks on so they're not wobbly. And this is going to be the support system for your entire house. So you really want to make sure you take the time to dig down deep enough, really pack the gravel in, get a nice stable base. You want a really solid support system here. And occasionally we did come across some stumps. There were tons of roots, like I mentioned. So we, at the time, only had the axe to work with. The hole digger would have been nice. The post hole digger or the chainsaw would have been great, but we didn't really have that as an option at the time, so it was a little more back-breaking than it needed to be. Now we're at the point of leveling our gravel base before we go ahead and lock in our cinder blocks. So we've got the 2x6 beams up there. We're just going in, measuring, remeasuring, checking the level over and over again so we can place these boards in the correct position and make sure everything is perfectly square before we start burying the cinder blocks and screwing the beams together. It definitely took a lot more time to check and recheck than it did to actually lay these down. We've got the cinder blocks secured. They're buried with fine gravel. They're not going anywhere, and Sean has started to screw our beams together. So we're committed to the perimeter we see. We're ready to move forward.
Okay, so these little guys right here, these are our engineered 4x6 beams. These are 5 individualized 2x6 pieces of treated lumber. And what they are is they are galvanized, bolted together using 3/8 galvanized bolts. We staggered the seams so that way there would be the center of the 8-foot lumber pieces would be over the seam, and then we staggered the bolting formation all the way down to make a solid, very strong 5-piece beam.
So you can see we have a nice solid base for our very solid structure above. And you can see the galvanized bolts here, along with the hurricane strapping that hold the floorboards down. Again, we also did paint the skid and the cinder blocks, both with exterior bare paint. We actually did a third coat on the cinder blocks after we had painted the skid. That's why you see some gray up on the green part there. go back and touch that up later. We just had some extra paint we wanted to use up. Here you can see the angled cut in the front as well as the hole we have drilled. That is actually for moving purposes. The way they move these skid sheds requires this sort of cut and a hole placed at least 4 inches back, centered on the skid like that, so that way they can run chains through it and lift it up onto the truck. Here's a better shot of the angle cut and the hole drilled there. It's actually drilled on all 6 ends. So there's 3 beams, and then each end is cut and drilled like this. Hurricane straps running all the way down to hold our floor down. So this first stage took us about 3 days. We came on Thursday night and worked all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Then we ended up leaving Sunday night. So we dug our holes, we got the gravel in, we laid and leveled the cinder blocks. Then we were able to level our beams, get those screwed together, and start the skid assembly. So we have the 3 beams for our skid, and Sean's going to actually stay and do all of the cross bracing, so that's done. This week, I'll come back and get him in just a couple days, and we will be coming back next weekend to finish. So the project cost us about $300. We were able to get the gravel and cinder blocks for free, recycled from a building that was actually torn down recently. So we just picked out the cinder blocks with the least amount of damage and raked up a little bit of gravel. We only needed a couple buckets full. It's about half of a trunk load with the tarp laid down. So we brought our load of cinder blocks and gravel up to the property, and we were able to find a local building supplier to get all of our treated wood for the project. We ended up using 3 16-foot 2x6s and 2 8-foot 2x6s per beam. I think the 16-foots were $23 and the 8-foot were about $12. So ended up being about $140, $160 with tacks for all of them together, for all 3 beams. And then also our 3/8 galvanized bolts. They were 4 inches in length, and we also had washers and lock washers along with those, so about $350 per set on those, and then we had 12 all the way down each beam. So we ended up spending probably about $140 with tacks on just the galvanized bolts, washers, and lock washers. We also did use Gorilla Glue. I think it was the medium-sized bottle for the whole entire skid. It was about $12. We did use the entire bottle for sure, just to make sure everything was locked into place. So yeah, I think the total on everything was about $300 with tax. And we did everything in 3 days with just the 2 of us and Danjo here, our dog, for support. Please make sure you subscribe to our channel. We'll be posting everything going back to November. It's now the beginning of September. We started the build the first weekend of November. We're backtracking all the way through the entire process of building the tiny house up to the point where we are now, which is enclosing the exterior walls and adding our roof. So we look forward to sharing all of our past building projects with you, as well as our future building projects. Bear with us a little bit. I know the past videos aren't going to be that exciting because we mostly were just taking pictures for permit purposes, but the new videos will be a lot more informative and a lot more video action, I promise. So bear with us again. We are new to YouTube, and you can also follow us on Instagram. That is at nature.tech.life. There's a lot more content on there, including pictures of our adorable puppies, lots of nature pictures from our hikes and the garden. Also, a lot of our inspiration photos so you can see exactly the style we're going for in our tiny house build and get a better idea of how everything is going to work together. There's a bunch of color inspiration photos too, so you can see the colorscape we're after. And again, we will be sharing more with you soon.